flag. That's a flag. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 37 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. This week, we break down the number 12 teams run in the Bank of America ROVAL 400 this past weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back. The round of 12 is over. We already knew Ryan was locked in, so I'd like to say kind of went into this race with all the cares in the world just floating away. He didn't need to do anything special, didn't need to chase points. They could try some interesting strategies. They can get off sequence. I feel like we saw a lot of it and made for an interesting race overall, and maybe not an exciting finish for the 12 crew, but I think they've focused forward already onto Las Vegas and beyond.
Except for the qualifying position that they end up with, the weekend was really solid for them for road course, and performance was pretty good, really, of the car. And later on, I'm looking at lap times and stuff like that. So, it bodes well for next year when they get to the next road course. I think they've improved some things, and they'll be in better shape next year. The only thing to look out for was whether or not they can get an extra bonus point or 2 for a stage win, or the 5 bonus points for the win. That would be the ultimate. But it was fun because everybody was real loose, and that's kind of a good thing. They were real loose on the radios, feeling like they're ready for the next round already.
I think you're right. And I mean, I don't want to, nobody listening to this doesn't know what the finish was, but you're talking about how they've improved a lot as the year has gotten on the road courses. And just looking at the finishes at Coda, he was 21st. At Sonoma, he was 31st. At Indy, 13th, Watkins Glen 9th, and then 12th this past week. So there's been kind of marked improvement over the last several races there, especially with kind of the low that they were at early in the year, especially they even ended, if you go back further, Indy last year, which misrepresents how that race went, but they were 26th there, but they kind of got punted at the end. 24th at the Glen, 26th at the ROVAL. So they had 5 straight finishes there on road courses that were 20th, 21st or worst. And then they've slowly gotten better and better. And if they can keep building on that over the offseason, I think they just need to keep learning more about the car, learning more about the feel that he needs, because prior to that, with the old car, he was on a run of, several straight races in a row with top 10s, top 5s. So what'd you think of the racing overall? The schedule came out last week. Lots of people were really, I don't want to say excited. A vocal minority, I don't even know. A vocal group of people were excited when they heard Dale Earnhardt Jr. kind of confirm a rumor that the ROVAL might be going away next year. And the schedule comes out. ROVAL's still on the schedule. So he's, Twitter or, social media can be very negative sometimes. A lot of people kind of were upset about that. The race, this race last year, Jeff Gluck's poll was like in the single digits or something stupid as to whether it was a good race or not. And so I kind of felt like people went into this race with really low expectations. And I can tell you last year's was boring for me just because they were playing the points game. And by the end of it, Ryan and Joey had to run in the back all day after, flipping the stages early to get points. So it wasn't that most exciting of a race. But I don't know. For me, a race at this track, there was drama at the end because of the multiple restarts. I think for this place specifically, having the stops coming back at the stage breaks helped, in my opinion, helped the racing. But if Ryan would tell you, even he said it on the radio a couple of times, he's kind of stuck at different points. So I've gone on a very long diatribe saying that I think the racing is okay. I am a fan of the ROVAL and glad it's coming back. But what are Steve's thoughts on that?
That's exactly where I'm at. I know a lot of people were like, oh, boo, get rid of it. And, I read a lot of different, it shouldn't go away. And there's 2 reasons. One, if you're going to make it a playoff cutoff race, it's perfect because it is mayhem. as Jordan says, Team Chaos. Jordan Miyake says it's Team Chaos. It's perfect. And bringing the stage breaks helped cause that too, because you had guys racing for the win versus guys who were racing for the points, and trying to get the points at the end of both stages was harder to do than, because of where some cautions fell. And it had all of that. And it came down to the last lap, even though you were looking at a 14 or 15 point gap on the cut line, anybody could spin out. And here's the best part, and not have a caution and spin out and lose the 10 or 12 positions while somebody gains 2 or 3 other positions, and all of a sudden, boom, somebody's in and somebody's out. So I like all that. And without anybody getting hurt in a wreck, that kind of thing. And they changed the restart zone, and that helps it totally. Because now if there is a mistake at the front, it's only 1 or 2 guys that have an issue, not 12 guys into that turn there at turn 1. So yeah, I'm another guy. You can count me as glad it's coming back. Jeff Gluck's poll I checked a little bit ago was 60%.
That's not too bad.
Good race. So it's way better than last year's poll. And, or 58% or something like that. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good spot for it. If they moved it out of where it is in the schedule, it might not be as good of a thing, but you see a road course, you see a street course, and this is neither. And yet it's like a combination of like 3 things. They say that the turns in the inner part of the track are similar to the street course at Chicago, some of them the way they are. And then it is a road course because of those kind of things. But it's also the track, the regular track. It's such a hybrid that you're using the track, except for the chicane down the end of the backstretch. You're using turns 1 and 2, getting up to speed. You get through that chicane well enough, and you're using 3 and 4, trying to get it up to speed. So it's got a combination of all those things. And the only other thing I could think of similar that they have raced on in the past is Daytona, this road course, and I loved when they went to that for the Clash there for a short period of time. I wish they would bring that back in some manner somewhere along the line, except for having Chase punt Ryan at the end of it. I thought the racing was good with that too. So, I like the fact that it's a combination of all those things. And if you're a fan and you're going to a race, unlike some of the road courses, this is one of my wife's complaints is of like going to Road America or something like that, is you can't see everything. You may find a TV somewhere that's by where you're sitting, and it might show you some of the action on the other side of the track, but you basically get when they go by you, and that's it. Whereas in this type of situation, you can go to Charlotte, you sit up high like you would for the regular race, and you can see almost everything. So it gives you road course, but yet it gives you stadium type of situation as far as viewing. So I don't think it should go away. I know that the racing has been good on the oval, but I don't know, I like it.
I'd agree. We talked about this a little bit in last week's episode, but the best part, and you mentioned the chaos with the point situation, best part was not having to sweat that out, kind of like we did last year and even years prior too, because it's just so scary. When Kyle Busch was leading the race, it's funny the way the points would swing. When Kyle Busch was leading the race, that cutoff line got incredibly tight between Truex and Reddick and Larson and Chastain. Like it would just go within a couple of points. I think there's a point when people were back to just +2, -2. And then as soon as, when Kyle Busch lost the lead, then it ballooned back up to 10, 15, 20 points at one point when people are like, oh, what's the big deal? These guys are fine. And it's like, and then Kyle Busch took the lead again, tightened right back up again. And they were kind of following along on TV with the 5 car, who, his crew chief Cliff Daniels was being really good about explaining to Kyle, like whether he needed to push or back off and what the point situation was. And there was a point when he was, saying, we're really not in that good of a spot. You're really going to have to push here. And I'm looking at as they run, and I'm like, he's like +15, +20. And I'm like, oh, if we just move Kyle Busch all the way back down, that he's like, oh, he's only like +1 or one or two points next to Truex, I think, at that point in the race. So so glad Ryan. I'm sure they were too. I think if listening to the scanner, from what I did, in some of the reports, like from Nicole and stuff on Twitter, and what you've said, like you could tell that Josh and Jonathan and Ryan were a little bit more laid back in their approach to this race, and they had a little bit more fun with their strategy and tried some things maybe they wouldn't have, like I mentioned last year. They had to chase those stage points. Ryan and Joey went and flipped the first two stages, got a bunch of points, and then rode around in like 24th, 25th for the rest of the race. And that was frustrating to watch kind of as a fan, but it's like I knew in the bigger picture at that moment, and obviously what happened with Joey going all the way to Phoenix and winning, that was a key to his championship and a key to Ryan to move on to that next round. So it is what it is. I'm all for the ROVAL. I think, we've put the Coke 600 on our race schedule to go to next year, but we went to the ROVAL the previous 2 years, and we, I feel like even like Talladega, obviously we're going to have some big FOMO from not being at Talladega, but it's like every week when they go to tracks that we've been to, and I know they're kind of within our reach to go to, I'm like, man, I wish we were there. And this was one of those weekends. The weather was beautiful. The race turned out pretty good. There's action, there's drama, and Ryan was already locked in, so there wasn't going to be any nerves. So you mentioned the one thing in the weekend that maybe didn't go according to plan was qualifying, and so let's talk about practice and qualifying a little bit.
Yeah, Saturday's practice, Ryan was in Group B. When Group A was out there, the 23 car and the 45 car were the class of Group A. The 22 and the 2 were both in Group A, and they were like 7th and 8th quick. Then the 5 hit the wall in NASCAR turn 1 coming up out of the infield section. Pretty much destroyed it. They ended up going to backup. The fast 5 ended up being like the 23 to 45, 14 to 799 in Group A. And actually 7, pretty good speed there in Group A. Group B here, he was, early on 4th in the group, speed wise. But 4 laps in, he says there's 2 loose. He was coming in and they had scraped the wall, in the same area that, Larson hit it. So, it kind of goes to show you with some of the guys had their car set up like the same way basically and had an issue. About 8 minutes to go in the session, they come back up, locked up the rears at one point. They ran 9 laps total. But they get to qualifying here. Group A's top 5 end up being the 45, 23, 20, then 99, the 22. Group B, everyone ran a lap early on. Ryan was 9th overall with that single lap. About a half a second behind P5 of the 54 car, which over the distance of that really isn't much. It's just messing up a turn basically. And, they came back out to run on one at the end there, and it pretty much was about the same time as the earlier one. He probably could have started a 3rd lap, but he says he really wasn't going to go any faster. But the top 5 end up being the 16, the 9, the 8, the 11, and the 54. So Ryan ends up starting 19th, and the pole there, we get the 45 on the pole. The 11 spins on his lap on the back stretch for the pole. So overall, P17, the 22 and a P7. So it kind of goes to show you with the Penske cars, they still weren't, qualifying just didn't go well. So we get to race day. Stage is going to be 25, 50, 109, 8 sets of tires, fuel run of about 40 to 43 laps. The 5 and the 77 to the rear for the backups. Pit stall 41, way down the end of or at the beginning of pit road, depending on who you talk to again. The 62 in front of him, the 78 behind. So, but here's another thing too. All these varied strategies, you're never really going to have everybody come down pit road at the same time. But maybe once or twice. Roger gets on here, no pressure. He says, make it happen, right? And Ryan's like, right. Mule ends up being spotter number 2. I think he posted a picture at one point of where he was up on top there. I think Josh, I don't know where Josh was in regards to him. They're both up high, but Mule had like a certain section to watch.
I think if there's a point when they're kind of picking on him a little bit too. Like I was talking about them feeling a little bit lighter, and they mentioned like, has anyone heard Mule today?
Jonathan messed with him a little bit.
He said he thought he was doing a good job.
Yeah, actually, at one point before they get started, Josh tells Mule, he says there's an ice cream stand and a lemonade stand over there somewhere or something. I don't know what I'm talking about. I asked Mule after the race, did you ever find the ice cream? He says, no, never found it. So I mean, yeah, they were at least having a good day and enjoying themselves a little bit. Like I said, all the pressure was off. So, Ryan's like, great, gets on the thing at the beginning there to say, we're going to run our race and try to win it. By the fifth lap, as they start off the fifth lap, they're 17th. They're behind the 3 car, about a half second back and 13 seconds back of the leader, the 45. Within 8 laps, they're still 17th. And once again, they're only about 16 seconds back. So in almost 10 laps, they've lost about 3 seconds worth of, so really the lap times weren't real far off from some of the leaders in dirty air. He says it during the day, the dirty air was kind of tough, just behind 1 or 2 guys, and as long as they were within a 10th or 2 of his lap times, it's hard to get by him. He says that he's got to get out from behind this guy. Been stuck behind him all race. Like to do whatever, what we talked about. And that's a message to Jonathan about their pit strategy. Jonathan comes back with a 10-4 here. And at lap 16, they pit. And they really were one of the early guys.
Yeah, first, yeah.
And this kind of like really, later on, we're going to find out it really could have worked, and it could have worked. I'm guessing to a top 5, but we'll discuss about it when we get to it. But it really could have worked out well for them. Lap 18, he's 31st, but here now everybody in the cycle is starting to come through. People are starting to, and they're going to stay out the stage break too. So lap 19, he's up to 28th. Lap 23, he's back up to 17th here. Now he's behind the 34 car. They're talking about saving tires and fuel here. And 6 cars in front of Ryan have not pitted yet. So they're going to end up pitting at the stage break. The 45 wins the stage. Ryan says we're better than some in front of me. He says behind the 3 of us just, couldn't get by him. But he also said the car felt better than practice. So Jonathan says we're staying out here. We're at P11 with the 20 now, ends up leading. Now the 20 did something that, like I said, later on, Ryan's going to have an opportunity to do. The 20, things that spread out so much that the 20 pitted, and when he came out of the pits, he was still in the top 10. And then once the cycle, once the caution happens here for the end of the stage, like I said, 4 or 5 cars in front of him end up pitting, and he gains all the track position all the way to the front. So we restart lap 30 here. Lap 32, he is in 11th. Once again, the 34 and he's behind the 34 with the 20 leading. The lap times are within 2 to 3 tenths of the leader, on equal tires. So, lap 35, the 48 passes back to 12th. At lap 36, the 17 and the 45 both pass him. He's in the 14th here, and the 9 takes the lead out front. At lap 39, the 5 passes his 15th, but now at lap 40, we're pitting again. TV had this at like a 10.006. I write that down as TV because I'm not sure if at some point we've got a 9-second stop during the race here, and I'm not sure which one, but this could have been it. TV might be a little bit different than the actual time they take here. Well, it was the Pytech, what was it, 3 point or 9?
Yeah, 939, I think, maybe something around there.
Yeah. So they come out, they've started the cycle again for everybody. They come out 34th here. Within 4 or 5 laps, people start pitting. By lap 45 is up to 23rd. Lap 47 is up to 19th. And at lap 48, we get a caution for the 78. And this happens right at the stage end. I think this is where Chase Elliott gets kind of messed up, right? Because he was out and he couldn't pit. Where's that? Yeah, because the 78 was having tire issues, right? And there was a section there where, couldn't get him in there. So at this point, I'm sorry. 9 won the stage here. Later on is where the caution happens, where he gets caught. 9 wins the stage. Ryan's 15th here, and there's 9 cars in front that haven't pitted. Jonathan says staying out. The leader is now the 8, taking the top, and Ryan's up to P6. So we have done all these things now. Now it's a matter of if there are cautions, where do they fall during the third stage versus our strategy. Everybody pretty much has to pit at least one more time. When are we going to pit? How long are we going to hang out? Restarting at lap 54 here, sorts out to 7th here. And then the 99 passes him. He's an 8th. At lap 58, the 16 passes for the lead there, and Ryan is 8th, almost 6 seconds back. But Ryan says we're better this run. Lap 65, P8 here.
He hangs in for a while. When you're talking about, it just seems like it is difficult to pass, but if you can get the track position, he's able to defend it pretty much.
Yeah, and he's only about 7 seconds back of the leader, so he's only lost like a second in 7 laps. So, they're hanging on to lap times pretty close here. At lap 67, the 6th pits from 10th position. At lap 69, Jonathan says anything suspect that may bring out a caution, we want to come. He says this to Josh. And they're faster than the leader by 0.2 at this point. At lap 71, the 8 pits, the 34 is having the issue. This is where the 34 is having the issue, and there's no caution at first here. And the top 7 cars in front of Ryan all pit. Ryan stays out. Lap 72, he's up to first. And, the question is asked at this point because everybody who had pitted at that point may still have to come in for gas. They may be a little short on gas, but they all anticipated this caution happening and it didn't happen. So now Ryan is out there in the lead. He's got a 20-second lead over, I believe it was the 16 car.
Could have been so good. Such a good strategy.
And here's what I was saying. Okay, so Jonathan says to give me 8 or 9 more laps. Then we'll have fresher tires than everybody else to the end of the race too. And like I said, lap 74, 16 cars over 20 seconds back. And the thing about this is he will at some point in the next couple of laps pit from the lead. He'll lose the lead. Okay. He's going to lose the lead, but the gaps are such that he would have probably cycled back in there somewhere in the top 5 with the fresher tires than everybody he's racing around, if he's racing anywhere near any of those guys, and may have been able to get himself even further up there. So this strategy, if it stays green, really would have been great.
Yeah, I think we saw early in the race, it wasn't the same type, it was similar, but the Christopher Bell had ran a little bit longer than everybody else, stayed out, had that huge gap, pitted, came back out, and ended up getting stage points that he needed in that. I think it was the first or second stage. So it was very similar the way that was working out.
Exactly. So for Ryan, same situation. If it stays green, he probably sorts back out somewhere within the top 5. And then, like I said, he'll have 8 or 10 lap fresher tires and everybody too, which is about a 2 second a lap difference, and may have gained some ground on some people early on in that part of the run. But of course, at lap 76, we get a caution for the 11. Doing 11 things. He's already solid. I don't know if he got stage points in the first stage or whatever, but he was 50 above the cut line to begin with. So at this point, he was locked in. And he does this spinorama through the front chicane on the front stretch, and then he gets tagged. I think it was a 77 hit him, and pretty much ended his day. But the worst part is this causes a caution now. And Ryan and Jonathan both are like, oh man, they're just, because they knew they had a decent strategy to do something. Ryan says, well, we will have fresher tires then, they talk about some damage to the right rear corner, but it's just scuffed a little bit there. So they do go in and pit here. They come back out here and they're 26th. The 16 is now leading here, and they restart lap 79. Then we get this crash for the 3 and the 7 car. Ryan smashed into the back of somebody here because everyone was checking up, but it didn't do any real damage at that point. With the 47 and the 43 spin out, just a bunch of just mayhem here. The lap 80, we get with the lap 80s when we get that caution. So the 16's leading here. Ryan's up to 22nd with some of this mayhem, and restarting at a lap, just about lap 82 here. Ryan and Josh talk about who might be wild trying to get spots here at this point, and Ryan says there might be some drama, and Josh says, I'm here for it. Once again, they're really nice and loose on the radio. There's some communication. I don't know if I've written it all down in here, but where, because of the way they communicate, Josh will ask Jonathan something on the other channel. And usually it's about where these guys are in reference to the cut line. And then Josh decides whether or not to tell Ryan, so that Ryan, if he's racing at or near some of these guys, to kind of let them race their race. So Ryan,
I think he thought the drama was going to be the one. Well, the one and the 5 are kind of running. Is that a little bit later?
That's coming up later on. Yeah, this was just in general, because they were talking about the 8 car, because he was up near the front at this point too for the restart. Yep. So, the restart lap 82. By lap 83 is up 21st. And then at lap 84, we had a caution for that 15 car. Now the 15-foot car had an issue, and he found a way to get off of the regular track. But the thing is when he did, he ended up at the end of pit road, or the access road coming off pit road. So they had to call caution for that because he was stuck there. John says we're staying out here. Yeah, he did. He tried. So, we start here, and then we get the 99 hitting the 2 car going, into the 23, pretty much ruining the rest of the 23's day. Ryan's up to 20th here. But then they restart lap 87. Ryan's all the way up to 16th on this restart. By lap 89 up to 15th. Then we get a lap 94 caution for the 99 in a NASCAR turn 1 wall. I think this is where the 20 car helped him along his way there.
Yeah, he kind of just drove through him a little bit there.
Yeah. Ryan's up to 14th through this mayhem. Ryan and Jonathan discuss whether to get tires or not. And Jonathan says the 2 is probably the call, and Ryan agrees here, and so they stay out. So I think that's what 2 is, but they kind of were counting cars and seeing who was coming down pit road, and didn't want to give up the track position they had. So Ryan's in 14th on the restart lap 98. Then we get a caution for the 47 on fire. Crazy fire. Not that he was casual getting out of the car, but he really didn't get out of the car like the car was on fire. I don't know if he really was just being calm and not.
I think part of it's not being able to see, because it was engulfed in smoke. Mm-hmm. But I'm sitting there saying the same thing. I'm like, come on, man, get out. And then you see the flames in the middle of the windshield, and you're like, oh, that's not good. And then he finally does eventually get out of there. So, man, that's unfortunate on many levels. Between
the passenger side door had a hole burnt through it.
Yeah.
So if you see some pictures of that today, it was pretty wild. They're up to 13th here, to staying out here. The 16 once again is leading, and the 8 is in P2. So yeah, we've got the 8 near the front here on a restart, and he needs the win. This is where Jonathan comes on and messes with Mule a little bit about if he was there or not today, because he says he didn't hear much spotting. But to tell you the truth, Mule sounds a lot like Josh on the radio.
Yeah.
The choose here, the 16's taking the top, Ryan's taking the top here, and they restart lap 99. Ryan is battling the 3 and the 20, but he gets himself up to 12th here. At 104, Josh is finding out about the point situation for the 1 car and the 5 car. Now here it is. Here's the situation. The 1 is like a car or 2 behind Ryan, and he's charging pretty well. The 5 car is racing in front of Ryan. There's like a 13 or 14 or 15 point gap between the 2, and that's where the cut line is. So truthfully, if the 1 car got up there and decided to spin the 5 car out and cost him 10 to 15 positions, he could move right up on that cut line. And they go, and Ryan actually lets the 1 car by here. And, then the 5 car pretty much lets the 1 car by also. He's pretty smart about it, doesn't want to get wrecked. Although I don't know if the 1 would have actually done that or not. But Josh gets on here on the radio and says, well, that was anticlimactic. Yeah. Ryan says, yeah, I was kind of hoping, Ryan was like, I was kind of hoping to see something. The last lap of the race there, Ryan actually passes the 5 and gets himself to 12th there. And the 16 wins the race. Ryan P12. Like I said, strategy wise, if the 11 car does not have his caution and they go a couple more laps and Ryan gets the pit stop in before any other kind of caution, I think he cycles out into the top 5 and with like 10 lap fresher tires than everybody might have been able to make up a spot or two. So really kind of sucks because the strategy was really good strategy.
Really good.
Was really good if the caution doesn't fall. But once again, in these road courses, that's what it is. That there's 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 different strategies, and one caution at the wrong time messes up half the strategy. So great win for 16 too, by the way. AJ really earned it because the last couple laps William was coming, closing in on him, and he was doing some mirror driving to keep him from passing him.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's 2 things with that situation. One, I'm like, here we go again. And I've said it before, absolutely nothing against William Byron. Great guy, friend of the Blaney family, obviously. But man, I'm just like, once again, he's going to find a way. And honestly, I think that's just, I've said it before. I know a lot of these other people have come up, the 11 and, the 17 at times during the year is like, who's the championship favorite? The 24, obviously we want the 12 car to win the championship. And I think they still have some work to do to get to that level of execution every single week. But the 24 team, when's the last time they've had a bad week? I think this round, they were first, second, and second in these races. They've won 6 races more than anybody else. I don't know if they don't win the championship. God, that's a huge disappointment for them this year because they are in it every single time on every single type of track. And I was like, here we go. One more time. He's going to swoop in here in the last couple laps and steal this. But I've seen AJ, I've watched tons of Xfinity races that he's won. He won the last 4 straight Xfinity races at the ROVAL. He didn't win a 5th because he wasn't allowed to run that race because he's a cup driver now. So he couldn't compete on Saturday. So he does this. Like a lot of the races that he'll win on these road courses, it'll look almost like the guy behind them is catching them a little bit more, but he's doing what you're saying, kind of mirror driving a little bit, managing the gap. He knows like what he's capable of, and he doesn't want to kind of drive over his head and make a mistake. And I think there was one I think when he got up onto NASCAR 1 at one point with maybe like 2 or 3 to go, he did kind of get loose a little bit. That maybe that definitely brought the 24 back to him, but the 24 was also sending it into every braking zone and hoping it stuck too. So, but that added to the drama. I think that's what we don't see a single digit or low digit Jeff Gluck. It wasn't a good race pull because tons of cautions at the end. Field was all bunched up. People were driving a little bit over their heads. And I think that's just what you get. And like you said, as far as the schedule goes, if this was early in the season, in the middle of the season, this race would not work. Being a cutoff race, bringing in a little bit of chaos, bringing the stage breaks back, stage cautions back, like sets up all those different strategies, flipping it a little bit more and giving people more track position, more so than if it just played out naturally. So I think it's in a perfect spot. I'm glad the ROVAL's coming back. I'm sorry for everybody that hates it, but I'm hoping next year Ryan's in the same position, already moving on into the round of 8 or just has a huge stockpile of points. And I'd like to see them go for the victory again. And man, they almost pulled it off, or at least they almost, like you said, I think it probably would have been a guaranteed top 5 finish, especially with the new tires. So sad we didn't get to see that, but on the plus side, locked in. And you want to go through these point standings now as they head into the next round of the playoffs.
Yeah. Let's start talking playoffs.
So, the 4 drivers that were eliminated in this round were Brad Keselowski, Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, and man, Kyle Busch did just about everything he possibly could. I think he maybe even mentioned post-race, like people thought maybe he could have been even a little bit more aggressive on some of those last restarts, like if it was a Chastain or somebody else out front, the 16 car is probably going into the wall at some point on one of those late restarts. But Kyle, as much as people people like him a lot better this year than they have in the past, but he's not really that kind of a driver. So he didn't do that, unfortunately, but man, did everything he possibly could, ended up finishing third, I think. So they tried their best, but he is eliminated now. So that leaves entering this round of 8 now. These next 3 races, William Byron is your leader at plus 20. Martin Truex Jr., the regular season champ, is plus 15. Hamlin is in third at plus 11. And then it gets a little bit tighter here. Kyle Larson is in the 4th position, plus 3. Chris Buescher is minus 3, so he's the first driver under the cut line. Christopher Bell is minus 8. Tyler Reddick is tied with him at minus 8. And Ryan Blaney enters in the final position in the playoffs right now, the 8th position, just minus 10 points. So super, super tight going into this round of the playoffs. And they got a lot of work to do, but I think they've got some tracks that are coming up here that could be pretty good.
Here's the fun part now. It's just, just like last year, we've got 3 races to pull this off. You only got, once again, you got to beat 4 guys. Now, if all 3 races are won by playoff drivers, then you've got to be that one guy who's got more points than everybody else. But we're going into the first week only 10 points below the cut line to begin with. So truthfully, climbing over those first couple guys is the biggest thing right off the bat. Get yourself into position, win the race would be beautiful. But get yourself in position and then same thing, second race of the thing, get yourself a little higher into the position, seeing who wins the races. And then that third race, be that guy that either is going to win it or be the guy that's going to outpoint everybody else and put the pressure on everybody else. That's the thing here in the next, especially this weekend coming up. Start off in the top 5, get stage points right off the bat, put pressure on everybody else, let everybody else make the mistakes. There are cars within this playoffs, the 19 car starts off with, 15 points above the cut line, but what has the 19 car done in the first 6 races of the playoffs?
No top 15 finishes. Yeah. Nothing.
And, realistically, unless something happens all of a sudden and something clicks for them, it's going to be tough. The 24 car starts off with a good cushion, but he wrecks in the first race. Then what happens? That 20 points can be gone in a heartbeat too, to the cut line. So we're looking at guys who run well at the first track at Vegas, and Ryan runs really well there. Larson will run well there. The 45 is a dangerous car. Interesting. There's 4 Toyotas, 2 Chevys, 2 Fords left. Okay. So Ryan is the Penske Ford, and then the 17 Buescher is the RFK Ford. And they have shown a lot of speed in the last month or two, but it should be interesting now at this type of track, what do they show up with? Really, really excited for Saturday's practice to get this playoffs going, because it really be interesting to see what everybody brings to the table on the first practice. Where Ryan can go from here. The sky's the limit. We've, if you want to go back and listen to some encouraging words, I posted a TikTok, and then we put it on some of the social media stuff from Chris Conklin's interview from last week. He says, we're going to win this thing. And you got to have that kind of confidence. You got to have that kind of feel. Ryan at the end of the race said something to the extent of the radio about let's have some fun, So I'm excited already for this playoffs. I'm just pumped. Can't wait to get it going.
So that's where the point standings shake out right now. Again, Ryan Blaney is in the 8th position in the round of 8, minus 10 to the cut line. So a little bit of work to do. I want to wrap up some things from the ROVAL, and that's going to involve the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And then Steve and I are going to go through kind of a quick preview of the round of 8, go through each track, talk about Ryan's stats and what the outlook might be for the 12 teams. So let's take a look at my fantasy lineup as we went into the ROVAL, and I have to say I'm pretty disappointed because I only had one driver that underperformed this week, and I got 3 out of the 4 featured matchups, and I still finished 29th. So I think there's just with the chaos, like my wife finished in the top 5, I know, and none of her drivers finished like in the top 5 or top 10, but because the way the strategies were split and people were getting stage points early, she was even confused as to how she did so well. So I started Tyler Reddick. He got the most points on the day at 48 points. Daniel Suarez, unfortunately, had a bad pit stop, got stuck in the back, and then played pinball the rest of the day, only got 9 points. Kyle Busch got me 38 points. Allmendinger, the winner, actually ranked 3rd in points earned with 41. Chase Elliott was 2nd in points earned, so he got me 42 points. I had Michael McDowell in the garage and left him there. He had some struggles with power steering and then some accidents a little bit later on. Featured matchups, I picked Kyle Busch over Chastain. That was right. I picked Tyler Reddick over Larson. That was right. I picked Bubba Wallace over Keselowski. That was right. The only one I got wrong here was I picked Ryan Blaney over William Byron. So in total, I ended up with 208 points earned and a 29th position in points earned for the week at the Roval. But like I was saying, man, 3 out of my, almost like 4 out of my 5 drivers were 40 plus points earned and more. And I get 3 out of the 4 featured matchups and I'm 29th. That's frustrating, but hey, that's fantasy racing, right? What did your lineup look like?
It's interesting. I had Bubba, who was 34 points, Tyler Reddick, 48 points, the top point getter. I had Christopher Bell, 37 points, Chase Elliott with 42 points. He was the second best point getter. And then I had Denny Hamlin, and his thing happens in the third stage, so I can't swap him. It's too late. William Byron was in the garage, which would have been 35 points. So there's a 26-point difference in my garage, unfortunately. That's probably where most of my problems come, because I had Chastain over Busch, so I lost that one. But then I had Tyler over Kyle, I had Bubba over Brad, and I had William over Ryan. I kind of thought William would have that kind of day, and he did. So I did get 30 points out of that matchup, but there's 26 points out there that, man, if I'd have had them, I'd have jumped right into that top 10 or close to it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, you ended up tied with Joe Lopez won in the 42nd position with 199 points earned. Again, I was 29th with 208 points earned at the Roval. And let's take a look at that top 10. In 10th, Angie 12, 231 points. In 9th, Racing Girl 12, 232. In 8th, the Buckeye Bullet, 233. In 7th, Cool Guy 2K, 235. In 4th, we have a 3-way tie with Blaney's Daisy, the Nutty Gamer, and Blaneyac 10 with 236 points earned. Then we have a tie for 2nd with JD Racing and Rogers T with 238 points earned. And in the first position, winning the weekend at the Roval, Bears Motor Club, 246 points. So congratulations to them.
Your wife got all 4 of the matchups right.
She got the matchups
she
right.
Had the first, she had the first, the second, the 5th, the 6th, and the 9th ranked point getters.
And none of them were really like super high finishers in the race either, which is crazy. But hey, it worked.
They had a lot of good stage points in there. So good job, Tara.
So let's take a look at the playoff standings. It does look like your team has slipped a little bit to the 14th position, Mez 12, 1,161. In 10th, we have Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing making a charge here at the end, 1,177. In 9th, Go Larson, 1,187. In 8th, I've slipped a little bit here, Team Blaney host Adam, 1,188. In 7th, JD Racing with 1,200 points. In 6th, the Nutty Gamer, 1,203. 5th, Moose Hunter 1960, 1,205. 4th, Blaney's Daisy, 1,208. 3rd is Blaring Idiots, 1,212. 2nd, Rogers T climbing the lineup here, 1,222 points. And out to almost a 30-point lead or so in first position, Fike 21, 1,251 points. Again, congratulations to you guys. I always say that, I do a little bit better in the playoffs, so I'm happy to be in the top 10, but it means nothing because the only points we really care about, because we do it Winston Cup style here in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, and that is the overall standing. So this is points that have been earned all throughout the season. And taking a look here, I'll scroll down. 33rd position is where I'm at, so I think I have moved up at least one position this week. Team Blaney host Adam, 5,797 points. Your team is in the 15th position, Mez 12, 6,012 points. Now let's take a look at the top 10 overall point standings. Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. Go 12 Go, 6,072 points in 10th. Tie for 8th here, JD Racing and Alyssa C, 6,101. 7th, Eric D15, 6,146. Penske Fan 24 is in the 6th position, 6,154. Fike 21 is in 5th with 6,182. And 4th is Blaring Idiot, 6,192. 3rd is Go Larson, 6,215. Factory of Sadness 6 still hasn't gotten back to the top spot, holding down 2nd. 6,228, and the leader the past few weeks has been Blaney's Daisy in the 1st position, 6,345 points overall. And that brings us to the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, round of 12, kicking off this weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, Saturday, October 4th. Round of 8. Sorry, gosh, we're done with 12. And it was the round of 12 with Ryan winning too. So the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, round of 8, Saturday, October 14th, Las Vegas Motor Speedway. You can watch the NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by the NASCAR Xfinity Series Alsco Uniforms 302, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Both of those events are going to be on the USA Network, and I believe you can also watch on the NBC Sports app. Sunday, October 15, the big race, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series South Point 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, NBC. And I've said it every single week, last few weeks, the rest of the way on NBC as far as the Cup Series races go the rest of the year. So, Steve, round of 8 in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. We have Las Vegas, we have Homestead, and then we have Martinsville Speedway. Ryan Blaney going into this round, I think they threw up a nice graphic on NBC in the post-race show. He had like an average finish of around 12th or so on the next 3 tracks. So as compared to all the other drivers in the round of 8, he ranked 2nd in average finish at the next 3 tracks. I joked that I think it's really his Martinsville stats that are bringing that average finish up. But let's take a look at this first race here and where Ryan stacks up. Las Vegas Motor Speedway, in his career, Ryan Blaney has made 14 starts. He has an average start of 11.3, average finish of 12.4. So that includes 8 top 10s, 5 top 5s, 1 DNF. So runs really, really well at this track all the way throughout his career. Unfortunately, last 3 races there, 36th, 28th, 13th. So those are all in the next gen car. One of those races was a crash. I'm not sure. I forget. Yeah, I think even the second race, the fall race last year was also a crash, but they kept going on. They're just a few laps down at the end of that thing. And then earlier there in the spring, started 3rd, finished 13th. So it's kind of an average day. Going into this round of the playoffs, you can't really be average anymore. I think you have to finish top 10 pretty much every single race unless everybody else has some catastrophic races.
Yeah, the next week or two when we talk about the upcoming race, if we look back at last year, because same thing, we're in the round of 8 last year, we'll talk about, not that we want to rehash things, but there were an incident that happened in Vegas last year where it was probably a top 5 finish, maybe better. And then we do know who won Vegas last year, and it was a Penske car. So that's all we're looking for this week is, a lot of points in the stages, get that thing up in the top 5, run up there all day, have a chance to win. And I don't care. I think if they duplicate what Joey did last year, that'd be beautiful. Let's just go ahead and win Vegas and get it over with.
That would be best case scenario. So again, in the last 2 races there at Las Vegas, Ryan's qualified 4th and 3rd. So they have the speed to start up front. They just have to execute the rest of the way through these races. As you mentioned, Joey went on to win that race, went on to win the championship. Ryan probably had a top 5 before he had that issue and ended up kind of with a torn up race car at the end of that race last fall. Average finish again, 12.4. That's good. Like I said, I don't think you can be average in this round, especially when you're racing against guys like William Byron, who've been finishing great all year. Denny Hamlin, he's had a couple spots of trouble in these playoffs, but has also won races recently. Who knows what Martin Truex Jr. is going to do? No finishes in the top 15 so far in the playoffs, but that regular season championship has been carrying him through these rounds. And these are also kind of races that the 19 car has an opportunity to run really well at. So you're running against some really, really good guys. I mean, these are the 8 best drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series, so it's not going to be easy to advance on. You have to be almost perfect.
Here's going to be the interesting part to watch each week in the next 3 weeks, and that is stage points. Okay, so every week there's 20 stage points out there. Okay, and now we're down to only 8 cars in the playoffs. Okay, do all 8 guys finish in the stage points every stage, in the next 3 races? Not necessarily. And there are other guys who are going to get in there and maybe win a stage, or other guys are going to finish 3rd or 4th or 5th within that stage. And, Ryan, let's say if Ryan finishes 2nd or 1st in a stage, that could be 19 points in on Sunday. And then a guy like, let's say like Truex or Buescher finishes 8th and then doesn't get any stage points in the 2nd stage. And all of a sudden you've made 17 points up on that guy, within the stages before you even get to the finishing results. So real interesting to watch. The playoff guys are not going to finish 1 through 8 at the end of each stage and 1 through 8 at the end of this race. And how many guys are in between there breaking that up and making, a guy, you get a 15th place finish, whereas you finish 3rd or 4th. All of a sudden, like I said, you flipped 11 or 12 points on a guy, at the end of a race, and then you get stage points and 2 or 3 guys don't get stage points, and you've all of a sudden flipped 5 or 6 or 7 points on those guys. So being up near the front, having the right strategy call, if the green, the races stay green, especially these next 2 weeks, stay green in the first 2 stages, you're going to see, 1 pit stop in the middle of the stage, hopefully a good green flag stop. You get to the end of the stage and like I said, stay within that top 4 or 5 of each stage and get all those points. So that's going to be, really want to look for an execution. You do that in the first 2 weeks, and the 3rd week, you might be cruising. You might be, it doesn't matter who wins. You're going to be that 4th guy,
So we mentioned it a little bit ago. Again, Ryan Blaney -10 to the cut line. So it's really, really tight when it goes from like that 4th position all the way down to 8th. So Ryan might be starting in the last position in this round of 8, but it's still really, really close between all these guys. So from Las Vegas Motor Speedway, we move on to one of my favorite tracks on the circuit, and that is down here in Florida, Homestead, Miami Speedway, 1.5-mile track, but it's kind of unique compared to any of the other 1.5 miles on the circuit. Nice banking, more of a true traditional oval, doesn't have that tri-oval. So pretty cool track down here. And for Ryan Blaney, 8 starts at Homestead. You only go there once a year, so it doesn't have as big of a breadth of a career there. 1 top 10, 1 top 5, average start of 10.6, average finish 18.6. He, quite honestly, has run much better there than his finishes maybe show. He has 1 top 5. So that 1 top 5, 1 top 10 is just one race, and happened in 2020 when he started 11th and finished 3rd. His other finishes, though, 17th, 26th, 29th, 17th, 29th, 17th. Lots of 29s, lots of 17s, and I hope that he's going to break that trend for sure. Last year in this race, again, you don't want to keep bringing up the negative things, but he did have kind of 2 back-to-back bad races in this round that kind of stopped them from getting to the championship 4 in Phoenix. And running top 5, coming off a pit road, probably the last pit stop of the day. And he has an issue with this next gen car. They changed the shifters in this car last year. And instead of shifting up, instead of shifting up or down, how did that go? He went the wrong direction. Yeah,
he went the wrong. He was trying to do an upshift, and he went and did a downshift,
and
spun the car,
spun out
on the access road coming off pit road. So yeah,
lost all his track position. Luckily, was able to continue on. He finished 17th. He's lucky because usually when guys do that, they tank the engine and have a lot more trouble than he was. So there was still a glimmer of hope of maybe something happening and him getting back up there. But, that Las Vegas finish and then this mistake on pit road really, really put them in a tough position when they went to Martinsville last year. So I am encouraged by the way they ran last year in the next gen car. This is a different 1.5-mile track, so maybe they haven't had the speed that they had last year on 1.5 miles, but I think this one is different enough. It's a high wear track that it might play into their hands a little bit more. than maybe, Texas or some of the other places they've been this year, that they're even Las Vegas earlier this year. So
this is the Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson track. This is once they establish the high line, you're going to see those two guys up on the wall the rest of the race, so get your popcorn, see how many times they hit it,
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think the outlook? Like I said, I almost feel like this was kind of a grim description where I'm, realizing how bad, or I can't even say average. Some of the finishes have been average, but he's had some really difficult runs at this track in the past.
Well, the last time they ran there, it was really going really well. It was a top 5 car when that happened. So, once again, these are things we're going to talk about because they're the most recent things that have happened there in the last year, but they were running really well. And, right now that's all you can do is just, duplicate those kind of things, get yourself up there, run real well, and, minimize it. They learn from experience. That's another thing. Everybody's had experiences, and now we're going to learn from them, and we're going to, unfinished business coming up here.
So that third place finish in 2020, worth mentioning, he led 70 laps in that race. So that was in the previous generation car. So you can't really compare it too much, but he does have some experience leading a race at Homestead. So we go from a track that statistically is one of his worst probably on the schedule. In the third race in this round of 8 in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, the penultimate race of the season, the cutoff race before the championship 4 head to Phoenix. And we're headed to Martinsville Speedway. And folks, I may have sounded a little bit sad, depressed in that last description of a track. But we're going to Martinsville, and it's time for Ryan Blaney to win a clock. 15 starts at this short track in Virginia. Out of those 15 starts, 9 top 10s, 7 top 5s, an average start of 9.3, average finish of 9.5. I was talking to Steve before we started recording. He only has 4 finishes out of those 15 starts in his career that were worse than 11th place. So this statistically one of Ryan Blaney's best tracks on the circuit.
The number of laps led there is amazing. And they have been out front and dominated the race for, sometimes half of a race. Just never got to close it out. I think there was one year, I think it was it Boyer? I think one of Boyer's last wins was there, and that was Ryan led about half the laps, but Boyer came out later in the race. So just that's just it. Just a nice consistent race. Get yourself starting up front, stay out front, and do all the things that right that you need to do on the day. And I think I would love to get to that point, not that race, and not have to worry about any kind of point situation. But if there's one place where he's going to get some points, that's the place.
Yeah. So this is obviously the site last year where the Hail Melon happened, Ross Chastain's move. It's worth mentioning, Ryan just fell like a handful of points away, even with his problems at Las Vegas and Homestead, from advancing into the next round of the playoffs. He finished 3rd in that race last year. So they did everything they possibly could except for win this race to advance the championship 4. They fell just short. And man, I know you like to tell a story, right?
This is the thing. Let's put a bow on this. Okay. What we figured out from last year, roughly figured out, it was 15 to 20 point difference that Ryan would have had if he had gotten top 5 finishes at the 2 previous races, not just, won them, but let's just say top 5 conservatively.
And he was in position for that.
For those, right.
It's not a stretch.
The Hail Melon never happens because he would have not been within any kind of points of anybody. Ryan would have been the guy, and he would have never been able to get to him. And I really wish that would have happened, because that would have made Phoenix even more interesting. But they've outlawed it since then too. So we won't see that this year. And hopefully we don't have to worry about any kind of hail, anything, come that Saturday or Sunday, which we'll be at. This will be
that's true.
Team Blaney, all hands on deck at Martinsville. We're going to make sure he makes the Final 4 by being there. And,
looking forward to it.
We're going to
enjoy some hot dogs, and hopefully we can cheers some hot dogs to them advancing to the championship for at Phoenix. But yeah, it'll be our first time, not your first time. My wife and I's first time at Martinsville Speedway. So definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to a strong run by that 12 team. Because man, I mean, we all know what happened at Phoenix last year. If he could just get over that hump and get there into the championship four, Ryan Blaney is one of the best drivers in recent history at Phoenix Raceway. This is so worth mentioning. This is Ryan Blaney's 5th time in the round of 8 in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, but he's never advanced to the championship four. And I think we talked a little bit last week about how weird this season is compared to last year, where super consistent, ran up front, got tons of stage points, won tons of stages last year, just never got to victory lane. This year, it's been more of a roller coaster season, but they have 2 wins and they're basically sitting in the same position as they were a season ago. So it's just weird how, you can think like maybe this year didn't go as planned, but actually, 2 victories and still in the round of 8, still only 10 points, below the cut line going into this round. I think, he might even be in a better position than he was last year. I can't remember exactly where he was. I'm sure I have some screen grabs of your playoff points big board that we were using along the way last year. So again, round of 8, glad the 12 teams in it. As you said, they got some unfinished business. We've had, some folks from the team share that, they think they're really optimistic about what they can do in this round and what they can do if they can get to Phoenix. But it all kicks off again this weekend, Las Vegas Motor Speedway. You can watch practice and qualifying 12:30 p.m. Eastern time on the USA Network. Then you can watch the race itself 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, the NASCAR Cup Series South Point 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway on NBC. Well, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and X at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at team.blaney. And finally, we'd like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Established in 2018, this organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch fan club. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on any of their very active social media channels. Now, speaking of the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation, it is October, and that is when the Alzheimer's Association holds their annual Walk to End Alzheimer's, at least around this time of year. We've already had the one up in the Mahoning Valley where the Blaney family was from originally. That one's already been held, so thank you to everybody that helped support that one. But there is another one set for Charlotte on October 21st, and there's still time if you're in that area, if you're going to be in that area, to sign up and join the walk. You can also just pop in there and donate. You can join the Team Blaney. Now, this is a Team Blaney, not necessarily us, but one that the Blaney family has set up for that walk specifically. So if you go to act.alz.org. If you go to that website, if you click on the button that says find my local walk, and then on there, it'll let you search. If you search for Blaney and then click search, you'll go to a page where you can see that Blaney, that Team Blaney group for that walk. You can go in there, you can join the group, you can start pledging money for that walk, raise some money and some awareness for the Alzheimer's Association. This is one of the big events that the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation likes to support every year. They've kind of focused this year more on supporting the Alzheimer's Association, so that's been really cool. So October 21st in Charlotte, that's when that walk is going to happen. So you still have an opportunity to help support those guys and support that team and a cause that's deeply, deeply important to the Blaney family for sure.
Yeah. We do want to wish our condolences to Shannon McMenemy, whose husband passed this weekend. He was battling cancer, and she's a friend of the pod. We've met before, and she's big Blaney fan who traveled all the way from the Pacific Northwest to go to races and to go to charity events and so forth. And our thoughts and prayers here with the Team Blaney family are with you and your family, and our condolences.
Absolutely, Shannon. We are thinking about you. So, for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.